This is going to be the first video of my channel. It'll kind of serve as an intro, as a story of who I am basically and what I'm looking to do moving forward with this channel. So my name is Kanoa. I'm 20 years old. I was born here in Honolulu, Hawaii. When I was 5 years old, my parents divorced and I had to move halfway across the world with my mother and my sister to live in France with my grandparents. Now, I didn't have a father figure really growing up, and a bunch of insecurities started coming up as I was going through school. I was a very sensitive child, and that resulted in me getting bullied and having a hard time with school in general. I was very passionate about a lot of subjects and about education in itself, but even the school system ended up basically disgusting me and making me become like a lousy student. I pretty much didn't study until like the very last minute. And the problem was that these habits, after a while, actually translated to the way that I viewed my own self-improvement, where I would be procrastinating on working on myself. And that's not possible because you don't have a deadline when you're working on your own personal improvement and you're working on your own, personal projects and business projects. So when I turned 17, I graduated from high school because I'd skipped a class, and having like basically no friends, feeling like very, very lonely, very isolated from a lot of people. I had like friends, but I didn't have, actual friends. And I just felt like I needed to fully reinvent myself, recreate a new identity. And the first way that I thought I could do that was by completely changing my environment. So I decided to go study architecture in Paris. So I moved from the south of France to Paris. I stayed there for a year and a half. I didn't really care at all about becoming an architect or about architecture in general. And I think that is the reason why I basically failed that year. I got into a very toxic relationship. I was partying, I was drinking, I was fucking around, just being basically a degenerate, but always to a certain level. Like I would never push myself too far, and it was always, within reason. And then I gradually realized that just through the partying alone and the going out and trying to seek some form of reassurance from relationships and thinking that that was the only way that I could find true peace, true reassurance, and true self-confidence. When I saw that that didn't work, and that breakup really broke me, that's when I realized I had to look inwards. And it took me a while to actually be able to go through that process and fully learn and master myself. But it was required, and I'm so glad that I did it because I'm still going through it every day. Like you're never going to be able to reach a point of perfection, and this was another one of my problems, was that I was so obsessed with the idea of perfection that I had to be perfect, that to some extent it did benefit me because I'd hold myself to a higher standard. But I would also always hate myself because I wasn't who I envisioned myself, I guess, to be. I wasn't an ideal of perfection, but you're never going to be perfect. So that's something that I'm still working through because it's still like a very strong belief that I have that if I'm not perfect, then I'm doing something wrong with my life and I need to basically just give up on everything. So I then moved from Paris after failing my architecture school year, my breakup. I broke contact with everyone that I knew from Paris, all of the negative influences, and I moved back to the south of France to live with my mother. Now, as soon as I got back, I knew I had to do a change because I spent 6 months in Paris basically trying to figure out something that I could do with my life, hopping from one business model to the next, convincing myself I'd tried when truthfully I really hadn't tried at all. Now, what ended up happening was that I got back, spent a month basically practicing for my French driver's license. I passed my license. I started working at Subway 30 hours a week and just trying to save up money to buy a car. While simultaneously, this was the time where I really, really went all in with my fitness, with the gym, with my self-improvement. Now, this also took me some time because I was training 3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, right? And the rest of the time, I was working minimum wage job just to save up money to get a car. I'm just trying to find a spot where I'm not going to bother too many people, because I'll just walk towards the park. Yeah, I just decided to film this on the go just because I wanted it to be as real and as authentic as possible. And I just got back basically from a workout. Today I was awake at like 1:50. My usual wake up time is 3:15 every single morning. I get up, I do my push-ups, I have my morning routine set up, and then I head to the gym, get back, start working on tasks to push the needle forward in where I want to go with my life, my business, and my own self-improvement. But anyways, as I was saying, I was working, I was going to the gym. This is when I really started bulking and trying my best to like actually improve my physique. And it's also the time where I started seeing the most results from working out. Now, could I have optimized my routine a little better? Yes, definitely 100% for sure. But at the time, the gym was the only thing I had, the only thing I knew what to do when I went in, the only thing where I could just go, stop thinking, turn my brain off, and just pour out all of this negative energy, all of my like past traumas, or what I thought were traumas, all of my anxiety, all of my pain, all of my sadness, all of my heartbreak, everything that was bothering me, everything that was affecting me. I could just pour it out and channel it into building my physique. And that's where I realized the second way of remodeling your identity, reshaping yourself from the ground up, is to take everything you've ever experienced and you've ever lived. Because when you don't really know how to process those feelings and those emotions and all of these things in a emotional way, like in a physical way, right? In a spiritual way, how to like just let it go and let yourself grow and evolve and heal. The only way that a lot of us find is through the gym. And if you haven't found that yet, then I'd recommend that if you're starting out in the gym, you use all of the frustration, the pain, the anguish, the way that people used to look at you, the way that people used to not look at you, the way you were invisible, or maybe you still are invisible. And long term, doing this is not healthy. I don't recommend this. But when you're starting out, you need some kind of like driving force just to push you forward and to give you an incentive to grow and to keep moving forward, right? So in about 5 months, I was working every day. I was going to the gym 6 days a week, right? I was bulking, I was eating a lot. Now, once again, this is something that I don't necessarily recommend to do. You don't have to bulk. You don't have to be dirty bulking and just constantly force feeding yourself every day if you want to gain muscle. You are able to stay lean and gain muscle by eating a little less, right? This is like the protocol that I'm doing now, because the most important thing as well that I didn't necessarily realize at the time, but what did keep me going was that I was sticking to a process that worked for me initially to keep me entertained enough to the point where I wanted to keep going to the gym, right? I didn't want to have a process which basically grossed me out or made me want to stop going to the gym, or just wasn't my cup of tea, basically. So right, let me just set myself down. So, as I was saying, during that time, I felt very lonely. I had isolated myself once again, this time by my own choice. I was working, I was like saving up money, which I used to buy a car, but I still had no clear direction of where I wanted to take my life. And a big part of my struggle and of what set me back a bit was that I was looking to avoid responsibility as much as possible. The inner child in me, the inner little boy didn't want to grow up. It didn't want to take responsibility for his own actions. It didn't want to realize that he was an adult now and that he was going to have to act up and he was going to have to take matters into his own hands and that things weren't just going to be given to him. And it took me a while to understand that even if I had been given things, right, over time, anyone who is given something and who hasn't earned it, they know deep down they don't deserve it and they squander it all away. Now that I know this, it's helped me to grasp that more firmly and to decide to keep moving on and build myself properly from the ground up, right? To become the man who is capable of enduring and of having all of the benefits of attaining success, but who's also capable of handling the problems that come with it. So during that time, I bulked up. I herniated a disc, so I hurt my back exercising. And that injury set me back a bit because it forced me to take some time off exercising, and I had to face myself for a bit. And instead of facing myself like I should have, I reverted back to doom scrolling, video games, right? All of these unhealthy habits. Um, I had been, however, doing no fap, so not masturbating, no watching porn for over a year and a half by that time. No, over a year. So that was also something that I'm really glad I did, because if you're not able to control your lust and you're not able to look yourself and realize that you're disrespecting yourself by basically squandering your own life essence every single day, then you need to realize that, acknowledge it, and change. Anyways, after that time, a few months went by. I tried out different business models here and there. I was trying dropshipping on TikTok Organic, on Pinterest. I launched an AI art account on Pinterest. I grew it to a few thousand followers. I was making millions and millions of views on that account, but I didn't know how to convert those views into actual customers. And this is what I mean when you receive something, but you don't know how to manage it, you just squander it all away. Still taught me lessons, but I made a bit of money from it, but it wasn't anything, to boast about. After that, I met like one of my best friends now, who looked like me basically when I first started out in the gym. It's about like 185, 175 pounds maybe. Yeah, 170 pounds. And I could see so many similarities in him to my younger self. So many similarities. And I realized that I could help him. I could maybe give him some guidance of like where I'd been, things I'd been through, and why it was so important to like change your mindset. I showed him habits, I showed him mindset, I showed him, the nutrition that I was going through to get what I wanted, the way I trained. We started training together. And it was one of the first times, I think, where I truly felt fulfillment from guiding someone else, because I was providing value. I was giving and giving of myself without expecting anything else in return. And that feeling was so rewarding, but it took me a very long time to realize that this was something that I potentially wanted to explore, and I wanted to provide more value to others as well. So in December and January, I ran up a dropshipping store. This other close friend of mine, he's really big in dropshipping. Well, he's really intent on pursuing dropshipping. And I never knew, right, if pursuing a certain business model was right for me, or if like, maybe it was right for me, but I was just too much of a pussy and a coward and I didn't want to put in the work. And that was what was holding me back. But I knew from doing the AI art account that I was capable of being dedicated to something and giving my all into something that actually interested me. So I knew it wasn't that. It's just that I don't think that the way that we were going about dropshipping was what I wanted to do, because we weren't selling products that I could be proud of. Right? I wasn't providing any value. I was shipping the product to the customer, but I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel like what I was doing was giving any value. I just felt like a scammer. And I never want to feel like that again. I never want to do that. I never want to be that in my life. That's like one of my core principles that I don't want to shy away from. Anyways, after that time, this was when I was at my heaviest. So if you don't know, like I started out in high school super, super skinny. At 17, I must have been at 165 pounds, maybe 150. I was very, very skinny. I was eating, but I was playing video games. I wasn't doing much with my life. Very depressed, very like distracting myself with as much dopamine as I could, screen addicted, all of that. And I took that all the way up to 175 pounds approximately a year and a half later from training on and off at the gym, just growing up basically. And my first phase of like huge growth happened once I got back from Paris and I was working at Subway, and that's when I went up from 175 all the way up to 185 pounds, right? Or 187, something like that, around summer of 2023. After that point, I started bulking, and my highest point of the bulk was after January or April, where I reached 92 kilograms or 202 pounds, which is huge at my body weight. Was just huge. I'm 6'1", so it's not as bad as it could be, but I wasn't lean, that's for sure. And after that, like, I was rereading journal entries yesterday, and I was seeing just how undisciplined I was, just going to bed at 4 a.m., at 5 a.m., at 6 a.m., at 2 a.m., waking up at 12, waking up at 1, waking up at 2, waking up at 3. Like, all of these things, like, how dare I squander the time that I'd been given when others are forced to wake up and work in fucking coal mines somewhere in the deep, dark Sahara, right? How arrogant of me to be doing that. How arrogant of me to complain and to feel sad and to feel depressed when I'm not even trying. And there's a lot of you looking at this video right now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're probably the exact same as me. Maybe you're trying a little bit more, but there's one thing that's for sure. You know you're not giving it your all. You know that you have so much unexploited potential that you're not tapping into. And you should be ashamed of that, and you should take steps to change that and to rectify it. Because there's no need in being ashamed and not changing anything to it. So, after that time, I didn't really cut properly. If I don't force myself to eat, basically, I won't eat. And that's a trait that comes from me just because I'm extremely lazy, or I tend to think that I'm lazy, and it's something that just annoys me to cook food. I love eating, I just don't like cooking the food. And so if I'm given the option, then I won't cook at all, and I'll just starve myself without realizing it. Around May of 2024, I finally started seeing some success with dropshipping because I was starting to be more diligent. I was working more. I had met with a mentor, and I crossed 1K a day with a product. It's the first product I crossed 1K a day with. And the 2-3 days that followed, I was hitting 1K a day again. And then it stabilized, it went down. It was like going up and down. But once again, I wasn't selling a product that I could be proud of. There were many issues that basically came up later on, which taught me still a lot. So I don't regret that experience. I think it's still very good because I learned about dealing with customer service, dealing with suppliers and agents. But I really started to feel like I was avoiding myself, and I needed to truly face myself, face my lies, be honest, and redetermine where I was standing at in my life and where I wanted to go. That's when I decided to fly back to Hawaii and come live with my dad and fully focus on whatever it was that I was going to do. I knew there was something that I wanted to do surrounding the gym because it's been a passion of mine and it's transformed my life, and I know the value that it's provided me, and that I could provide that value to others, right? I could distill that value down to others, but I wasn't yet sure. I was still looking around, and the more time goes on, the more I would start panicking and thinking like I'm wasting my life away. I'm 20 already, Like I have to get this shit together. So I spent the rest of the summer in France, doing dropshipping here and there, but nothing crazy. I slacked most of the time. Just I spent a lot of time with my friends and with my girlfriend, and I was working, but I didn't have an aim. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know who I wanted to be truly. I didn't know where I really wanted to go. I had a vague idea, but I hadn't taken the time to face myself and make a life out of it. September of 2024 is when I flew back to Honolulu to live with my dad. Big step, huge change in environment. As soon as I hit the ground, I had a process. I was waking up before 7 a.m. I was hitting the gym. Right, I was taking the steps to start to get installed here, all the bank account changes, getting a driver's license or applying for one, all of these things. And it's now been over 2 months that I've been here, which is crazy to me because it's just like the time went by, and I've been sticking to my process this whole time. I started recording, I started filming on Instagram, TikTok, filmed a few YouTube videos as well. But I still wasn't facing myself. I still was running away from my fears, and I wasn't allowing myself to think about where I wanted to go. And I finally took the time yesterday. No distractions. I turned off all my devices, alone with my thoughts and God, and just in the dark in my room with myself. And I started to notice that there were so many emotions that had been welling up from coming back to my birthplace, and all of these anxieties and this trauma from my father and all of these things, right? Just coming up, and I realized all of these years where I'd been lying to myself, telling myself I want to do this, I am doing this, and pretending that I was working because I just felt so bad about myself. But all that did was amplify the lies and make me feel even worse about myself, or build resentment towards the people that I was lying to, which were mostly me. So I built so much resentment for myself that how was I supposed to find any ounce of respect or any ounce of love? And I always thought that self-confidence I had to like build it or find it somewhere. I had to like, how do people have this self-esteem and this self-confidence and this self-love when it just has to come from within you? You have to nurture it, and you have to daily take responsibility for your own life, and you have to look at what you're doing that's holding you back. Cut away those habits and start doing the things that will build you up into the man that you know you can be, but you're not doing the steps to get there. That's going to be it for my story. I'm just so glad that I can document this journey, because we're truly starting from scratch. We're truly starting from nothing. And I know now where I'm headed. I have a clear vision. I know I want to impact as many lives as I can. I know I want to give out all the value that I got for building this physique, rebuilding my self-confidence, rebuilding my self-esteem over time. And there's still some work to do, but there's always going to be some work to do. And the thing you have to realize is that the first step is the one that matters the most. The second step is what's going to keep you in the loop. And you just keep getting better, and you keep getting better. All right, that's going to be it. I'll see you in the next video. I don't know how I'm going to be naming these talks yet, but stay tuned.